If you're a broker and you think agents are the center of the transaction, you might not be so correct on that. Today, I spoke with Craig McClelland. He is the Chief Strategy Officer of HomeStory and also the president of LOCAL Realty, which is a small boutique firm. He's also an industry thought leader, and we had a great conversation about referrals, where business comes from, what is changing in real estate in the industry and brokerage right now, and how do you stay ahead of that change? So enjoy the podcast. Craig, thanks for joining the RealTrending podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so today I want to talk all things industry trends, consumer expectations, just kind of get a beat on what's going on out in the industry right now. And one of the things I've really noticed is a lot of brokerages they've always put agents first. That's obvious. But I feel like there's a renewed, I don't say interest, but need to think about the consumer as much as the agent in what they're doing. Usually that was kind of the agent's purview, right? So talk to me a little bit about what you're seeing out there. Is that what you're seeing too, or are you seeing something different?
I love this topic. I think that it's a requirement. We have to put the consumer first. We should partner with agents. We as brokerage companies should partner with agents to help them support the consumer, but the end goal should be the consumer. And I think that unfortunately, the evolution of real estate from the 70s to today has really highlighted creating massive independence for the agent and like supporting them and like, hey, it's your listing, your lead, it's your consumer, it's your this, it's your that. It created this environmental relationship where the majority of brokerage companies, how they support their agent base is the agent is the consumer. And then that agent does whatever they want to with the consumer. But yet we have all of these companies. Think of like Zillow. Zillow puts consumer first. You think of like Rocket. Rocket's putting consumer first. Like we have all of these big enterprises that are putting consumer first and being very successful with it, that we have to partner with our agents to support them in having the tools and resources and the bandwidth to put that consumer in the center of the transaction, put that consumer first.
Yeah, it's just interesting. I feel like it was really the settlement that kind of brought that to the forefront some. And then a lot of the consolidation happening in the industry. And I want to talk about some of that because people are very curious. Rocket, Redfin, what are they going to do? And then a lot of the other portals have purchased, companies. Well, Lower Mortgage bought Movado. We've got Realtor.com and Zenlist. We've got several different.
You got Bayview, bought Guild. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
A lot of the plays going on right now.
Yeah. So tell me your take on that, and what are you seeing out there? How do you think it'll impact real estate brokerage moving forward?
I think that I don't want to say that the settlement brought it to the forefront of the conversation. Yeah. But I think this is something that has been incubating over time. So I mean, the how Zillow has been working with the consumer has now gotten to a point where it's impacting the agent's relationship with the consumer. Right. And I'm not going to say in a good or bad way, but it's like, hey, if Zillow is doing all this for the consumer, like the agent should really step up and play a different role, or they should make sure that the consumer is really supported in their journey. And the journey's changed. Back in the past, it was just a couple of months that you met an agent. They got pre-qualified and they showed you houses and you wrote contracts and you went through inspection, you got financing, blah, blah, blah. And then you went to closing. And it's like this 3-month period of time. And now it's like, with all this data out there, it's now becoming this longer, maybe 14 months. We've done studies where it's on average, the consumer is from the time they interact with a portal to the time that they actually close, it's like 14 to 18 months. So like the agent has to support this different length of a journey. What do you do to do that? Like it's these tools and resources. So about the ecosystem plays that are going on, I think that the timing's just right. Like the consumer has to have a longer relationship with whoever they're going to purchase or sell with. And that requires different tool sets. That requires a different engagement with the consumer. That requires like different components in that ecosystem to support the consumer's journey. Now, if you want to dive deep into like what Rocket's doing, like Rocket's creating the forever cycle. Like it's not just the, hey, you bumped into a portal, you need questions answered. Hey, how do I stay in touch with you for 14 months? How do I get you financing, blah, 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 and how do I close you? But then the other end of that, hey, how do I service your loan? And then how do I bring you back top of funnel when you're ready again, right? Like, so lots of exciting stuff. I think it's great. I think it's amazing when the industry has this much focus and has this much attention. It opens up like massive amounts of opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, Zillow did try with Zillow Mortgage, and actually their mortgage company has grown. Um, I think Rocket is on a whole nother level, though. So it'll be interesting whether they succeed with what they want to do or not. And what are some tool sets, or what do you think the average agent needs to be ready for or take advantage of? Let's say opportunities.
One thing I'd be real careful about is
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't compare Rocket and Zillow right now, because Zillow's path to where they're at was different. They
Mm-hmm.
came up through a portal and they came up through the industry, and they just recently started looking and smelling and tasting like what Rocket's creating. And that was just like 6 to 12 months ago. They started looking, investors started comparing them. Hey, you compare a Zillow to a
Right.
Rocket, right? But Rocket came a totally different path. Like Rocket came through that originations channel, high volume top of funnel of originating through, acquiring customers top of funnel with interest of mortgage and then bringing them down through that origination path. So they both got to where they're at from different places. So you got to remember, like Rocket has spent years perfecting this originations path, and Zillow has spent years perfecting this portal path. So it's not one to one, right? It's very different, because if Zillow really wants to compete with Rocket, they have to figure out origination. If Rocket really wants to compete with Zillow, they have to figure out portal. Like that's why they bought Redfin. So you have to look at where they're coming from, because they have different margins they're playing with also, because there's different margins in origination than there is in this lead conversion and referral model. So anyways, like I wouldn't put them apples to apples, like kind of like apples to oranges, but very much in the same category and getting closer to each other. And it's going to be very fun watching Rocket, because if you have watched any of what Rocket has done historically, Rocket is very quick to execute on things. And they figure things out, and they're willing to take risk. So if you look at like right when they launched it, like they launched it, they got this thing approved. They were already hiring more W-2 agents. They've already pushed the path that August 8th, they're going to shift their portal from Rocket Homes. It's going to push over to Redfin's portal to, for all your home search needs and everything. A lot of that will go through that channel. They're going to move really quickly. And I've already heard from brokerage companies that a lot of them are lowering their lead source or disconnecting their lead source of like Rocket business is now going to go to the Redfin agents. It'll be interesting watching it. It will create impacts in markets, because there's a lot of volume to that. Now, what your question was, what do brokerage companies, what do agents need to do is like, we really need to refocus our lens, right? Brokerage companies for years their lens has been my consumer or my customer is the agent.
Mm-hmm.
And seeing how that plays out as we move forward is going to be really difficult, because just having a lot of agents doesn't mean you're going to be successful. That can't be the definition of success in the future. Because if you have a bunch of agents that aren't getting any business because Rocket is deflecting business over here and Zillow is deflecting business over here, what does your firm look like? What is your value trade-off with the agent? And margins are so tight in brokerage, they just get tighter in those scenarios, right? Like when you just have agents that are just doing deals with their family members, the commission model is really tough to sustain it. So it's got to be like, what's the value trade-off with the agent? So if that's your customer, like how do you align with that agent for them to get more customers and to grow their book and to get into luxury real estate or get into commercial real estate? Like you really have to successfully do that now. You can't just like have it as a bullet point on your website. Hey, we happen to be in commercial. We happen to do luxury. We happen to do these things. What I've been telling firms to do is like, you really have to pull apart your P&L, and you have to identify like, what are the 4 or 5 things you're good at, and decide to be great at those things. Like you've got to be like in your market, that if an agent's thinking about getting into luxury real estate, like we have created a defined path that we can show you that 85% of the agents that go through this program successfully move their book up a 20% lift on price range or whatever it is to get into higher category homes, and we can help them grow their book by 20 to 30% by doing these things. And we have tools that actually engage those customers for that longer tail relationship. So you're partnering with me to grow your book. You're partnering with me to lift your price range that you typically work within, and you're partnering with me to have the right resources to make sure that your customers have that long tail journey and they're stickier for a longer period of time. And that's like, and that means that the other things that I'm okay at, I have to abandon those things. Like I just can't do them anymore. I have to take them off my website. I don't want to even be known for those things anymore. Right.
So the one thing that, I know that NAR has always put out a statistic that the majority of the brokerages are very small. It's a small broker. And that really hit home. I did a series of brokerage roundtables around Florida with the Florida Realtors leadership team. And when you ask the room, how many of you have, are single brokers or, selling brokers, or you have less than 5 agents, more than half of the room every time raise their hand.
Yeah.
So what about them? What do you see for them? Because my focus has always been on the bigger brokerages, being that, we have the RealTrends, 500, and we kind of work a lot with the large companies, but there are a lot of smaller brokers out there who are not sure what their play is.
So yeah, over the past couple of years, I've done a lot of work with the MLSs, and shockingly enough, is if you had 2,000 brokers on that roster on the MLS, almost every time that we look at a roster, half of that, 50% of that MLS roster is single office brokerage companies. Like, so 50%. And then if you're going to look at like offices that are over 100 agents, it's a very, very small group of brokerage companies. So it's pretty shocking. I've thought that shocking over the years also, is that is like categorically, like the majority of all the firms are small office operations across the US. But to your question is like, what should they be doing is, as you're watching the evolution that's happening in real estate, is you're seeing a lot of exodus of agents from these like shops that are, they're focused on agent count. Those are exiting towards these. They're either one of 3 paths. Like one is they're moving to these boutiques that are very niche style, and they're very focused, laser focused on luxury. They're laser focused on a purpose. They're laser focused on a community. They're just a brokerage outfit that's around like lakes, or they're just focused on this one specific, whatever it is, mountain town or something that it is. Or the other end of that spectrum, which is, it's a very discounted model. It is, it's a shop that is maybe transaction based. It's a couple $100 a transaction. There's actually one in Atlanta right now that charges $149 for an entire year, and you keep 100% of the commissions. Completely virtual. They don't offer any services or tools. That is the trade-off between and the agent understands that when they go hang their license there. The third path is getting out of the business. You see some of the agent count going down a little bit. So I'll tell you, like, I see a lot of growth and opportunity in this niche style, like these laser focused companies. Like, so if you think of a firm, like the firms I've been talking to and the brokerage companies I've been talking to and advising, is like, they need to get laser focused on what is your purpose, what's your value trade-off with the agent. Like, hey, we can provide this thing to the agent. Maybe it is moving up into luxury. Maybe it is moving their bracket of the types of clients that they service. Maybe it is, hey, we have developed a program to help you, grow this part of your book, right? And we can categorically show you how we were successful at doing that. This isn't just a line on our website. This is something that we have proof behind it, that we can actually successfully do it. This is the trade-off, and this is why you would pay me to be part of this firm. And we're really, really good at it. And then the other items, the other bullet points on our website, we're going to remove all the ones we're good at, because we're just going to pick the 3 or 4 we're going to be great at. And that's what you have to do, is like, you have to choose what you're going to be great at. Like, define exactly what you're going to be great at, and abandon the other pieces. And that's exactly what agents have to do, the exact same thing. And because these are becoming, instead of it being, hey, we have a firm and you hang your license here, and we have this weird relationship of, I don't even know that you work here because there's thousands of agents that work here. We're going to have this relationship where I know why you're here and you know why you're here. And that's the value trade-off. And we're partners, and we're not just going to partner on growing this piece of your book of your business, but we're going to partner on servicing this customer. right? We're going to have tools that literally we partner directly on this customer on incubating them and reaching out to them and like talking with them and servicing them. And maybe it's a white glove service concierge or something that we offer as a company, and that, and they work directly with your customer. This is the kind of partnerships that are going to thrive and exist. And the deeper the relationship or the services that are provided to the customer, the more sticky the customer is. They stick with you and they want to be with you. So regardless if they find a house on Zillow or they're getting a loan through Rocket, they're still going to say, hey, this is my resource. This is my person. This is who I'm going to be, I'm going to work with through the transaction. And brokerage companies, the smart ones, are coming alongside their agents saying, hey, I play a role in that now. And agents are also building their own little ecosystems around the customer and saying, hey, it's really about like, how do I support the customer at this stage of journey they're in, right? It may be very top of funnel. It may be they just close and it's 6 months after that. And I'm really going to build systems around them and partner with my brokerage company to make sure that I'm top of mind and that I get repeat and referral business from them. And they know that I'm here as a resource, right? So we're just going to have to get very intentional, to be honest with you, Tracey. Like there's no more of this like, okay, we're okay in the business. We got a brand and that's all we have. It's like the brands are irrelevant now. Sorry.
I totally agree with you. But on the flip side of that, we're seeing this massive growth of these single entity national brokerages like LPT. And I just talked to Sean, I can't remember his last name, from Simply Homes. Mm-hmm. I never even heard of them. And he told me how big they were already. They offer mortgage, title, just they're kind of I think their model is they offer 2 caps. They say they offer a lot of services. I don't know. I'm talking to him in detail pretty soon. Yeah. But they're, we've seen, and even Compass and EXP grew faster in less time than the legacy brands like even a Keller Williams and that. And obviously growth tends to get capped, right? I mean, a lot of these brokerages get to a certain point and it's tough to get more from there. But that's one of the trends I'm seeing in the industry is this kind of explosion of these choice, agent choice brokerages, or, it's just a different play on the same model, right? I mean, they're not, they want to go public very quickly. LPT wants to go public very quickly. Simply Homes wants to go public very quickly.
Most of them want to go public because of their investors. They want access to liquidity and capital, like things like that. But so if you just go all the way back to, like, go on a journey with me back to the 70s, right? Mm-hmm. Dave Liniger came out with a model that I think was actually one of the first evolutions. Like, I got to give Dave a lot of credit. Is like, prior to Remax, it was really the relationship with the broker and the agent was the broker was fundamentally the center of all the business, and agents were kind of assigned to a piece of the broker's business to work the business, but the broker owned all the business, right? And the broker interacted with the client. That was the core fundamental of how it worked. And then Remax came out with this concept saying, hey, if we all had this universal brand of Remax, and then you could just rent a space from me and just do whatever you want to with the client. And there's this independence that came out of the idea of a brand. It's like, hey, it's about the brand, and then you have your own independence. You do whatever you want to. You just live under this brand. And if you take that, and then the next iteration of it was Keller Williams. Keller Williams took it to another level by saying, hey, it's not only this brand and you have your independence, but I'm going to let you participate in top line revenue off other agents, right? That was the profit share model. Yeah. And then you take another iteration of that was kind of EXP saying, hey, we're going to make it the stock off of it, and we're going to lower the cap some, and then we're going to remove the office because we don't feel like that's part of our value trade-off. And Compass, I think, falls in the middle of all that, because Compass, they kind of put a spin on Keller Williams and said, instead of you participating in someone else's revenue, I'll buy your book. Like, I know how much you're doing, and I'll give you a check for you to bring your book over, and then you stay here for a period of time. So still letting you share in top line revenue, just in a different way. And so all of them are kind of like this iteration of like, where are we heading to?
Right.
Like, and that's what the question is like, Is it to like a HomeSmart? Is it to like, because you got people ahead of the line that are like, hey, we're going to be like United and charge like $400 a transaction, or we're going to be like HomeSmart, like same kind of scenario. I mean, in Atlanta, there's 4,000 HomeSmart agents. There's another 4,000 United agents, right? That are working on models where it's a transaction based relationship. It's not percentage based. So is it heading in that direction? I think it is. For the majority of the market, like, because when you're talking about 1.5 million agents, and what did NAR had a stat that it was 76% of them didn't do anything in 2024, something like that. So like, where do the 76% go? They have to go somewhere where it's very low costs for me to hold my license there. I want to keep my license. And this is something everybody has a problem with, is like, they don't understand, like, there's no reason for an agent not to keep their license active, right? Like you don't, when the market changes, all these licenses don't just fall out of the market. What they do is they shift from a house where it's very expensive to hold your license to somewhere where it's very inexpensive. And if the market doesn't shift, then maybe they'll get out because they don't want to renew, but they'll, they'll drop NAR, maybe they'll do these different things to make it less expensive to keep their license, because licenses equal opportunity. It's just like, if I'm going to sell my house 5 years from now, I want to have my license because I want to collect the commissions on it, right? Or I want to participate in a referral or whatever it is. So I don't have to get rid of my license. So anyways, it's like, where is it going? That's the $900,000 question. But if you're building companies over here, people are like, there's already this gravitational pull in that direction. So like, if you're in the middle of like, I don't know, the companies that you mentioned, I don't know where they fall in that line of like, if they're closer to where like a HomeSmart is, there's obviously a gravitation towards, there's a lot of agents moving that way. Like I was saying, this is the traditional model in the middle of like more of a headcount model. There's a lot of them moving over here. Like there's a big volume moving over to like the HomeSmarts and moving over to that type model. And then there's another category that's moving over towards like, I'm going to be full time. I'm going to be very serious about luxury. I'm going to be whatever, moving that direction. Like your smaller firms, like there's a lot of teams exiting those large brokerage companies because the margins are tight. And they say, well, why am I paying my broker anymore? I should just launch a small firm and be a boutique. And we have Zillow business, we have Rocket business, we have teams that are working our SOI, like things like that. So like I've seen a huge group of teams that move over into boutique, and they're like, hey, we're just going to do this part of the business. We're going to do it really, really well. And so there's a lot of that going on. So like, here's the one thing that we have to land the plane on is like, there's not any one solution that's going to solve it in real estate, but there are there's very clear indicators that there's exodus from certain models that aren't going to be, sustainable. They'll become smaller, like those models that are focused on headcount will become smaller and smaller territories. They've already lost a lot of market share and things like that, because you have all these outside influences that are kind of gobbling up that business, right? If you take 5% over here and 5% over here, 5% over here, there's not enough to sustain your office count, your staff count, your technologies, things like that. But it's I think there's tons of opportunity for the agents, for the teams, even for the brokerage companies, right? There's a lot going on with the brokerage companies that are just rethinking, how do I run this firm? If I have a firm that has 3,000 agents, let's say, like how do I reorganize it to make it sustainable and make it really work? Like, a lot of firms are being super smart about it and saying, well, I've got 3,000 agents, but I only have 1,500 doing anything, let's say, okay? Like 50% are doing something and 50% are not. Well, if I've got 1,500 agents that aren't doing a lot of transactions, maybe I should leverage them for the other 1,500 agents. Maybe those agents should be doing showings and open houses and doing being employed by the other 1,500 to do kind of gig worker environment. And maybe I can help. And that's the value that you have by being at my firm, is you have 1,500 agents you can tap into to use for services. And that's the value for those other 1,500 to stay with me, is because they have these jobs that they're doing for the other agents, right? There's really cool stuff like that going on that I think is going to evolve, like how the firms leverage and where their ROI comes from.
That's really interesting. I had not heard of anyone doing that. So that's really interesting. Right,
there's a lot of
them. That's wow.
Think of like a Shawami. I mean, Shawami is a really smart model. They got, a bunch of agents under contract that can be hired by other agents to do, license needed, but not required tasks.
Yeah.
There's a lot of really smart things like that going on. So like if I was a firm with 3,000 agents, I would definitely, and we did it at my old firm, is like, we definitely set up where there was ability to use other agents for showings and for open houses and for different activities. And you create this gig worker environment, right? Like, and it's then the agents that are top producers are like, hey, I need to be here because there's this workforce I can leverage. And that's the value I'm getting from the firm. Because if I was to leave, I wouldn't be able to leverage the same workforce, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like Compass is very innovative in their M&A as well. The way they're structuring M&A, I think they were some of the first to really structure it with stock and that as well. So, I always think that's really interesting. I want to. We're getting close to time, so I do want to cover referral and referral fees. That you were saying that's a huge trend and something that you're seeing. So talk to me a little bit about that and what you're seeing out there.
Yeah, it's super interesting, and it's not something that just like this is something that again that just it took many decades for it to come to full steam on it. But most people don't have the conversation about like how many units in house you're paying fees to a third party. But the reason why I pay attention to it is because somebody controls the client's eyes, right? And when somebody controls a client, that means that they could choose to steer them to you, or I hate using that word, but they could choose to direct them to you and partner with you on working with them or someone else. So like you have to look at like how much of your business is controllable business. Like how much did I originate myself, right? Because that's the business that I control. The other business is business that was, you throw a partnership, but if that partnership goes away, that business could go somewhere else. So it's very important to understand that and make that part of your business model. It's like, all right, I understand what part I have in-house that we've generated in-house versus out. Anyways, that's a long description to get us to a very simple thing. And that is that, over the years, we sign these referral agreements that agents can, get referrals from Redfin or from Rocket or from Zillow or from, realtor.com or for whatever, because back in, 2015, 16, it became very popular to charge on the rear of a deal versus like paying up front. So there's all these referral fees being paid out. Well, there's some different players in the industry that have run some of these numbers, but I find it very interesting. And this is the way I look at it, right or wrong, is I look at it is, yes, there's 89, 90% of all the transactions closed with a real estate agent. My question is, how did they get to the real estate agent? Because it's really important, like how they got that business. And the numbers they're finding are mid to high 30s% of the deals that are closed on the buy side that are paying an outside third party a referral fee. That's not a team in house. That's actually a third party out of house. That means that if one of those sources decided to say, hey, I don't want to send my business to broker X anymore, I'm going to send it to broker Y, his agent's over there, or that agent leaves and goes over there, or whatever it is, like that business doesn't hit that brokerage house anymore, right? A 5% shift in market share on your buy side business is big when you're running on a 3 to 5% margins in your business. Like that's really, really big impact. So it's important just to understand that. Like I would tell brokerage companies, like if you're going to run a study on your firm, like that's one of the studies you need to run is you say, all right, well, wait a minute, like where did these deals come from? Like, because, we all think like, oh, it's the agent originated, blah, blah, blah. Like, not so much anymore. Like if you've got a big chunk that's coming from third parties, like how does that look going forward? Because a lot of brokerage companies were doing Rocket business. Well, if they steer that business to Redfin, you'll never see it. Like you're not going to see it anymore, right? So like those closings don't happen anymore. What is that? How does that impact your gross revenue or your net? Same with like Redfin, where you're getting leads from Redfin, like as a partner agents with Redfin. It's all that stuff. So as these shifts are happening, as the ecosystems are being created, they're going to create vacuums in certain MSAs as they shift, and they're going to create some chaos. And it's important to really, really understand that, right?
Yeah, that's interesting. Is there actual data around the, where referrals are coming from? Have you seen any studies on that? I think that would be a really interesting article.
And
Okay.
it's the parties that have given me the information haven't chosen to release it, so I don't want to put them on like a bullseye, but but I can tell you like it's pretty substantial. But I'll say the most important study that can be run is you got to run this in-house. You got to run it with your own firm, because
Right.
it doesn't matter how it impacts Bob up the street. It matters how it impacts your business model, right? And
Right.
I tell agents all the time is like, you have to look at like, how much business are you buying and how much business are you creating, right? Because there's two different categories, right? The Bob business could go away tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
And the created business is something that stays with you forever. You're building a business model with that,
Yeah.
right? So like, you have to look at it that way. Same with the brokerage company.
Yeah, interesting. Very interesting. You gave me some really good ideas for some stories too.
Oh, we could spend
So
hours on that, I'm sure. You know, there's
yeah, yeah. So my last question is just what's next for you? What are you working on? Anything going on that you want to share?
I spent a couple years at Bayview, awesome company. I learned a lot about the secondary industry. Worked at the firm in Atlanta for years, and then went to Bayview, built a national firm for them. So we went live in 47 states. It's super cool, a lot of fun, awesome team up there. And then worked with Raise for about 6-8 months and helping them with their go-to-market with the MLSs. I'm right now Chief Strategy Officer over at HomeStory. Super excited about what we're doing over there. So we're doing a lot in the referral space and a lot with, a lot of great partners. And that's full-time where my focus is and what I'm working on. And I think there's just a ton going on. And just like, I feel like I'm in the middle of like all of this amazing evolution of what's happening. And it's just where I want to live for a while. It's just, it's great.
Well, great. Well, Craig, thanks so much for coming on the podcast and sharing your knowledge. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Anytime. Thank you, Tracey.